In my left hand is the Omega X Swatch, the famous Moonswatch, and in my right is the Blancpain X Swatch, Blancpain, or however you want to say it. Today, we're going to be comparing these models, both hands-on, and figuring out which one you should get and why. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And today we're comparing the Blancpain and the Moonswatch, and we're seeing which one you should buy. We're getting hands-on with both of these watches. I own both of these watches, and I have had some wrist time with both models, so I can draw a lot of similarities and differences. Now, of course, both of these models are different beasts. One is a chrono model, and one is a diving watch without chrono functionality. But there is a lot of differences that you should know. Before we start this video, if you could hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. It really helps me here, and let's get on with this video. So let's begin with the weight of each model. Now remember that one has a fully automatic movement and one is quartz, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. When it comes to the Blancpain X Swatch, it comes in with the NATO strap, nothing changed. It roughly 44 grams. But when we look at the Omega Moonswatch, it comes in at about 30 grams. So there's around about a 15-gram difference in both of these watches. It's important to say that the Moonswatch has the original strap, and so does the Blancpain that I have in my right hand, or the Blancpain X Swatch. And there's a considerable difference in both of these models when you pick them up. The Moonswatch is considerably lighter. On the subject of straps, the Blancpain X Swatch watch comes with a brilliant NATO strap. Now, you do have a variety of colours depending on which one you go for, but I'm really quite impressed with how good this strap is for the money. It is a double pass NATO strap, but it does feel pretty damn good, and the colours are pretty damn brilliant. I would say that the strap's maybe a little bit long. Having said that, I do have 6.5-inch wrists. They are a bit slimmer, so I can't really complain. Now, with that said, the Omega Moonswatch's strap is essentially a Velcro strap, and you can hear that just there. Now, it doesn't sit well with the Velcro strap, and actually I changed this over to a NATO, but for the purposes of this review, I changed it back for you guys. I'm not too keen on the Velcro strap. I do prefer the NATO, and if you were to get the Omega Moonswatch, I would suggest moving over to a NATO. In terms of the specs of both of these watches, we have pretty huge differences between them. One is a lot thicker and a lot bigger on the wrist than the other, and that, of course, is the Blancpain X Swatch watch. Now, it comes in at 42.3 millimeters or 42.4 millimeters in diameter, depending on how you measure it, and it comes in at 14.4 millimeters in thickness. With that said, because it has that double pass NATO strap, it pushes off the wrist even further. So I would suggest, if you were to get this watch, put it on a single pass NATO strap. That means that it only goes through the back once, and it should give you a little bit less thickness because, to be honest, it does sit pretty damn high off the wrist. Now, when we look at the Omega Moonswatch, it comes in at 42 millimeters on the dot, and it looks that little bit smaller on the wrist. And that's partially down to the fact that the thickness is a lot less. It comes in at probably 13.25 mm in thickness. We measured it with our digital calipers, and that is a lot thinner than the Blancpain X Swatch, especially because that strap does not go down the back of this watch. The lug-to-lug on the Blancpain X Swatch is also slightly bigger. It comes in at 48 millimeters, whereas the Omega X Swatch watch comes in at 47.5, probably just under. Now, I think there's various reasons as to why the Blancpain looks so much bigger and so much more chunky, especially the white version, because when you think about it, let's say you gain some weight over the summer. I normally wear black t-shirts to camouflage my weight. It's kind of the same thing in watches. If you have a black watch, sometimes it camouflages the size that little bit, whereas white kind of accentuates the size. So I think that, as well as the fact that it is that slight bit bigger, makes this look even chunkier. Next up, we have the fact that one of these is quartz and one of these is automatic. In essence, one of these is battery powered and one of them is not. The Omega Moonswatch is battery powered, and the way to tell if a watch is battery powered or not is whether the hand ticks or whether it sweeps. So this hand on the Omega Moonswatch is ticking. That's how you know it is a battery operated watch, or a quartz operated watch. Essentially, you have a little quartz crystal that's banging around really, really fast, and that's making the hand tick, but that's getting too technical. The Blancpain X Swatch watch is, of course, automatic. This is the System 51 movement from Swatch, which is essentially a plastic movement, and it has 90 hours of power. But to top that off, and something that's a huge, huge difference, is the fact that this does have an open case back. Now, on the open case back, we have a little piece of wildlife, and that's another difference between these two models. So let's dig into that. On the back of each Blancpain X Swatch watch, you have a little piece of wildlife, and it's actually called a nudibranch sea slug. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. But this sea slug is indigenous to whatever area the watch you get is from. So for example, the Antarctic Ocean, that nudibranch sea slug will be from the Antarctic Ocean, and it will be differently colored to, let's say, the Indian Ocean. And that's how these colors were developed, which is a really cool touch. Whereas if you turn over the Omega Moonswatch, you have whatever the planet is. For example, I have the mission to Mercury. Now, in comparison, I think it's slightly cooler to have a planet rather than a slug. But also, I quite like the idea of having a little bit of wildlife on the back of the watch that is indigenous to the area of the sea where it's from. It's really cool. So it really depends on this one. I mean, do you like space or do you like wildlife? Everyone's different. I would probably side with wildlife. In terms of functionality, one of them is obviously a chrono model and one of them is not. One of them has a rotating bezel and the other one doesn't. Now, if you're like me and wouldn't really use the chrono, but you might play with a rotating bezel, then maybe the rotating bezel is for you. Maybe the Blancpain is for you. However, if you are into that intricate detail, like most watch nerds are, and it's not your first watch, then maybe the chrono suits you. I suppose also the colour is a pretty huge deal to people. And I know that the Omega Moonswatch had a Tiffany blue kind of colour. And I know that that one was the highest resale valued Moonswatch. So obviously it was the most popular. Whereas on the Blancpain X watch, they don't have a Tiffany blue colour, but they do have a white dial, or a white colour, which the Moonswatch didn't have. So I suppose that's really down to personal preference. There are more to choose between in the Omega Moonswatch. So yeah, you can have a look. The lume on the Blancpain X watch is a lot brighter than it is on the Omega Moonswatch. And I suppose that's because, technically speaking, it is a diving model, or based on a diving model, and that kind of makes sense. I mean, you'd never take it diving, but it's cool that it has that lume. Now, the lume on that model is more of a tealy kind of blue color, whereas on the Moonswatch, it's more of a green color. Again, I don't want to kind of direct you here because that is personal preference. I prefer the blue lume, but you might prefer the green. The deciding factor here for most people is going to be the price. This Blancpain model comes in at £340, whereas the Moonswatch model comes in at £228. Both of these watches caused outrage in the industry a lot of the time, and also they did something really amazing for the industry. They got more people into watches. They got people talking about watches, which is essentially adding to our watch community and growing our watch community. So I think that that's fantastic, in my opinion. But that's not what this video is about. If you have a limited budget and want style over substance, I would go for the Omega Moonwatch. Whereas if you want substance over style, because it is that little bit bulkier, it is maybe that little bit too much, I would go for the Blancpain. Now, I'm a watch collector. I have been collecting watches for 7 or 8 years. I love these little hype releases that get everyone really excited, and that's why I got both of them. And the good thing about these watches is because they're entry-level watches, you can collect tons of them and really kick off your watch collection. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or follow our Instagram, Chisholm Hunter Watches. Hit that little bell icon, and then you get notified when we drop new videos. And we also have an after hours club where we discuss this in more detail. I'll see you soon.